Thank you for having me, guys. Thank you for having me.
I was still in the newsroom yesterday when you literally rolled in with your 2 bags from Anambra State. Welcome back, and such good work that you do through the Town Hall series.
So
First off, let's get your first-hand experience of the ambience, the moments that happened through the entire event.
Well, I think it was a laudable performance by the entire team of New Central and, of course, the attendees of this particular town hall. It's one of the, I mean, we've done town hall, we've had town hall gatherings where we've talked about security and insecurity. So this one wasn't expected to be so different. However, in certain ways, I'll say it was a bit different, such that there was ample participation and response from the people when it came to the questions of insecurity in the states. Now, the good thing for me is that we were fortunate to have the state commissioner of police himself attend this particular town hall gathering. We've had places where we've had instances where we have representatives of the commissioner of police, people like the public relations officer of the police in that particular state. But in this case, we had the commissioner himself, which gave for a good avenue for the people to put forth their complaints to the commissioner and for him to respond. Sadly, I'd say that we didn't exactly get the kind of response that we wanted. Well, I don't think we got the kind of response we wanted from the State Commissioner of Police. But again, I'm happy that he came there. I'm also happy that people were able to air their grievances. We had cases where the people who attended commended the governor, Chukwuma Charles Soludo, His Excellency, for doing a good job, but then still putting forth their complaints, saying that they would have appreciated if the measures he's putting in place now actually came much earlier. Remember that we're just a few months away to elections, the governorship elections in the state. So while some were whispering that this could just be measures coming just before elections, like we get to see a lot of times, others are saying that they hope that this will be lasting, long-lasting solutions concerning the state of insecurity in Anambra State. And again, hoping that whatever solutions come in place here will not just happen in Anambra State, but will reverberate across the southeastern parts of the country where we know that we're having issues of insecurity. Unfortunately, we're having these issues all across the country, but at least solutions starting from one region hopefully could cause a ripple effect across other parts. So again, it was a healthy, rich conversation session, lasted longer than we planned, but then that's what you get when the people are actually out to talk when issues concern them and issues affect them. Again, I think it was a laudable performance by New Central team, and I'm grateful to the people of Anambra State who turned out in their numbers, over 100 of them, about 180, if I'm not mistaken, aired their views, put forth their grievances, and we're hoping that their voices eventually will strike one or two chords and get to the levels where solutions will eventually be sought.
Right. I mean, Bernard, like you rightfully put, well attended. We saw the traditional rulers, the paramount rulers, as well as the Commissioner of Police, and we saw the back and forth there between them, and the fingers being pointed and chords being struck. You are there. Give us your first-hand account of what really happened between and the allegations that were flying left, right.
Correct. Unfortunately, it turned out to be, almost a blame game match, eventually on that day. We had the Commissioner of Police there in person to address some of the issues that were raised. He didn't come in at the beginning of the program, so some of the questions were missed. Now, the people had complained basically about encroachment by herdsmen into their communities. Some had complained about, youths, whether from the community or out of the community, beginning to cause mayhem amongst them in that particular place. And then some talked about, I asked a question saying, when you had these attacks to a particular lady who came to give her own first-hand account of how she was attacked at some point, I said, did you report these cases to the authorities, to the police? Some said no, some said yes. And then there were also complaints that there are cases where even the security operatives themselves, in their own little way, are adding or have been adding to the cases of insecurity. Some said that sometimes you have police officers extort them while they're on the road, police officers not being responsive, police officers complaining about not having the right infrastructure or facility to tackle crime, like we've heard one time too many, talking about not having fuel in their vehicles, not being able to get there on time. So when the commissioner of police eventually arrived and stepped forth to grab the microphone, I was expecting that to be a breath of fresh air where he will be able to respond to some of the questions. However, his responses were not as favorable as I thought, and as I think I'm speaking for the crowd as well, because like you clearly stated, or like you heard in that report, there was an air of disappointment to some of the things he said. First of all, the traditional rulers, like you also clearly stated, debunked part of his statement where he said that these herdsmen who have encroached into their communities were let in by some of the traditional rulers. They turned that down and debunked it. He talked about the police officers themselves not being adequately equipped. But then the question is, if you, the commissioner of police, is complaining that, or if you are complaining that your men and officers are not adequately equipped, and you're making this complaint to the people, is that going to instill fear? Or is that going to instill more confidence in the people? That was a part of confusion for me. I made some other statements that really got the people riled up, where they were hoping that the police will have more answers. Unfortunately, led to some more questions. Again, I think this town hall, what made it unique for me is the fact that in trying to address one situation, we were able to unearth several issues that may have been existing before, but we just brought them to the fore. For example, we tackled the issue of insecurity. The police also brought up, and the commissioner himself, if I might add, brought up the issue of the police officers not being adequately equipped. So you can say that this town hall also brought that to the fore. You could also talk about, the issue of the herdsmen encroaching the city. We had somebody who talked about going back to the master plan by ECOWAS, that there actually are pathways for livestock to graze in different ECOWAS nations. So it was the town hall where we were, we had like lesson sessions from ECOWAS. We had the police coming to complain about their own inadequacies, and then we had the people complaining to the police about how they've not been getting as much assistance as they deserve and as they require. Again, my hope is that all of these complaints would get to the right and the appropriate quarters, so that solutions, which is what this was all about, will begin to show face.
Bella, it's very interesting that it had to take a New Central Town Hall to actually bring these matters to the fore. Even the police complaining at a New Central Town Hall meeting too. Reminds me of that track by, what's her name, Omar Me, If You Ask Me Now, Who I Go Ask? But in any case...
I literally sang that song in my head.
The drama that played out with the CP and the chieftain there, I think it was a chieftain because he had the traditional tusk with him, regarding the herders. Now, there seems to be some gaps here when it comes to intel regarding the origins of these herders. So is it that the police have no idea where they're coming from, where their points of entries are? Because it will mirror the instance we had in Jos, where the police came to say, we don't even have any idea what's causing the problem. So it seems to be a general thing through the Nigerian apparatus of police. Was there any specific indication of where the origins of the herders are from?
Well, there was no specific, indication of where they are from. However, I think one of the things that CP said, which actually did resonate with what we've been hearing in different parts of the country where there's been encroachment by herders and attacks as well, is the CP did request or did suggest, community engagement and, community or communal security, basically. The police officers, as we know right now, the country is under-policed. Right, and so is Anambra State. So they would require the services and the assistance as well as collaboration of the people of these communities. The police may not be there all the time to know where these herders come from. And I might add, or if I might add, herders have been moving across the country for decades, for centuries, if you like. I know I served in the South many years ago, and they had, as at 2010, 2011, they also did have these issues of herders encroaching into their farms. So I think what the CP was saying, which actually did resonate with what I've heard, across the country several times, is that communities community policing, not necessarily by officers of the Nigerian police, but by the people of the community, could actually help in intel gathering, such that you know the people who are occupants and who are residents in your communities. So when you see strange faces, when you see them coming in, you should be able to raise alarm and engage them.
Yeah, but Bernard, before you go too far, doesn't that breed a sense of mistrust or distrust between people who are supposed to be Nigerians? If we're asking the people to do their own policing, don't you think that one group of people would feel that, oh, it's our responsibility to lord it over the rest? Aren't there flaws in that kind of system?
Definitely, and I was going to get there. There will be flaws in individual policing or in communal policing, as a matter of fact. But then the onus would lie on the people of the community to find ways, and we're beginning to see that happen now. Different areas, different communities, different maybe even states or regions. I was going to say have begun to create their own type of local vigilante groups. We have the Amotekons in the southwestern region, and then in Anambra State they have the one they call Agune Chamber. If you look into that report, you'll see some gentlemen in front wearing some green and yellow looking uniforms. And I had asked earlier because we had gotten cases of some of these local vigilantes being a bit heavy and high-handed on the people, which means that they will need some kind of training for them to be able to properly police their communities. However, it should not be out of the activities of the police, who are constitutionally saddled with responsibility of guarding and safeguarding lives and property. So it has to be a collective effort by the constitutional police of the land and whatever communal security architecture that has been put in place by these particular regions. Again, I'll wrap up this question by saying that, as the CP did say, it has to be a collaborative effort. We cannot take away the fact that the actual duty of the police is to secure lives and property, which is one of the #1 responsibilities of any government. However, in this case and in Nigeria, we have come to see that the people themselves at some point would have to take their own security into their hands. And so being vigilant has to be #1. And then collaborating with the police force and with the security architecture already in place has to become #2. The hope is that this security architecture we're talking about is adequate enough, strong enough, and capable enough to tackle these issues.
Well, I mean, whether local or collaborative effort, one thing is certain: the sit-at-home order still stands. I wish there was enough time for us to dissect that as we head into the gubernatorial elections in November for the state, but there's not enough time. Bernard, we must say thank you for taking out the time to join us. Bernard Akede, lead correspondent for News Central, giving us a bit of insight following the News Central Anambra Town Hall meeting on insecurity in the state.